Okay, in this video, I am going to show you how to use the puppet tool inside of After Effects to add in just lifelike movements in your scene. So essentially, we are going to animate this plant here. I want to make the leaves kind of move. And you can use the puppet tool for all sorts of different examples, like, for example, moving appendages or fingers or entire head tilts and things like that. So you can get really extreme with it if you wanted to, but for this scene, we'll keep it subtle. So first things first, you guessed it. So this is the raw file from Midjourney. We need to press it. So let's go over to Gigapixel and we will add in our image here. Plant growing, and this time I'm going to keep it at 3840. So it's just straight 4K and we don't have to pre-compose whenever we jump into After Effects in a little bit. And we'll keep it at the standard AI model. And again, you could use Big JPEG if you wanted to. No pressure. You do you, as they say. Okay, cool. So I'm going to save the image to our computer. Great. And now let's hop over to Photoshop. I don't think we want a spaceship in our scene. I think we would rather have the plant this time. So high-res plant image. This looks amazing. Gigapixel did just an amazing job on this one. So let's import it here. And what we're going to do is remove the plant. So I want to animate this plant here. So I'm going to just cut out. We'll cut out right at the base here, right here. Just like that. And generative fill. Okay, great. That did a really great job. Let's look through our variations here to find the best one. I kind of like number 2 the best. So stick with number 2. So let's duplicate that background layer here. We'll move it to the top. And then now we want to isolate the plant here. So we'll go to our quick selection tool. Let's zoom in here. So quick selection tool, I'll scale this down, holding down Control and Option as I drag to the left to change the size. And we'll just start selecting this plant. This. This all the way down to the base there. You sure what this stick is? I think that's part of the plant. We'll incorporate it. Okay. And we have all the plants selected. So now we'll negatively select here. And before I do anything else, I'm actually just going to go to Select and Mask. So we can go to the full menu. And we'll go select our selection tool. And I'm holding down Option. We'll just deselect this part. Just like that. Cool. Looking pretty good. Holding down Option. Really cleaning up the best we can. And then sometimes it'll take it too far and you may have to introduce more back into the scene. For example, this twig here. There, and you can even turn this up to see like where the problem areas are. Like, for example, this one is living off on his own for some reason, so you can zoom in there, add him back in. And I think with this one, I'm going to get a little more detailed, just because I want this to look as good as possible. So let's turn this back on, and I'll find all the edges that don't make sense. Yeah. Looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks good. Holding down Option. It's always a back and forth. Always a back and forth. It's pretty good. So I think this looks pretty darn good. It seems pretty realistic. And now we've turned up feathering just a little. I never like turning up feathering too terribly much. Maybe just like 0.3. Make it look a little more realistic on these edges here. And I think generally everything else looks pretty darn good with this. So I think that's what we want. So I'm going to export this to a new layer here. And we will click OK. Now we have a new layer. So we have essentially that there. We have the plant layer on top of the background layer. Looks very, very natural. I would never know that that was two separate layers. So let's save these as two separate files here. So I'm going to just real quickly, I'm just going to quick export as a PNG the background. And we'll make sure we put this in the correct folder here. Layout to background. And we'll do the same thing for the second layer here as well. So we'll isolate it so it's by itself. File, export as a quick PNG. And we'll call this plant. So we have plant background and the plant. Great. So I think just for good measure, just in case, we'll just hop back over here to layer picks. And I want to import the background for the plant. Okay, cool. So this is just a really rough displacement map. I'm not going to adjust anything. We'll just keep it the way it is here. Great. So let's hop over here to After Effects now. So let's import all of our assets. So we'll import our plant background and our plant itself, plant background and the plant, and then our displacement map that we just got from Lives. Cool. We have all four assets. Let's bring in the background to a new composition. Just drag the background to that icon. We have a 4-second composition here, which is totally fine. And very quickly, you can see if we just drag in the plant, just the plant above the background here, looks like a pretty realistic scene. And first thing I want to do is show you the puppet tool, and then we'll add some movement to the overall scene here. So the puppet tool can be found up here. It's the puppet position tool. And if you hold it down, there's a few other different options, but generally you're going to use just the regular puppet tool the majority of the time. So I'll turn off the plant so I can just show you just with the background. So remember, this background is just one image here. And the way puppet tool works is if you set a puppet pin, let's just set 2 pins here, and now go back to your selection tool and you move this pin, you can see it kind of stretches things like it's like made out of elastic. It's pretty cool, but if you kind of cleverly use it, you can create some like simulated movements. So let's go back to our plant here. I'm going to turn it on, and what I'm going to do is select the puppet tool, and you can have it show the mesh if you want to, and I'm going to click into the plant. You see, as I click into the plant, it's creating these like triangles. And these triangles are basically saying, this is the way that After Effects is going to break up this image so that you can animate it. So hypothetically, like let's grab this plant here. You can see it's moving this leaf around. And this one, we're moving the leaf around. You can move the tops of these leaves. And you can add in as many puppet pins as you want. Typically what you want to do is add in pins where joints happen. So for example, let's delete that pin there. For this plant, you would imagine that, of course, we would have a pin here. But if you wanted to animate this leaf, you would have a pin here as well at the base because the leaf would be animating off of the base. And for this one, you would probably have a pin here. And for these, you would have a pin here and maybe one here and then one at the tip, which would basically kind of animate the leaves. And so you kind of have to play around with it. Sometimes the pins can get a little wonky, so it's just good to just test it out and see what's working. Sometimes, like for example, if I was to animate this leaf here, sometimes you see how the middle is getting stretched. That's not really natural. You can just put down another pin and that will hold that spot in place to where now I can move this leaf and it's not adjusting anything else. So it's pretty cool. So now let's go in here and we can animate this leaf more. So I'm going to start with this one here. So whenever you select your puppet pins, there's actually a new menu that pops up down here. And so there's like a puppet menu. You can click the drop down and then click the mesh here. And it will expand basically a menu for all of the pins that you currently have. And just like you would animate anything else in After Effects, you can animate the pin location. So by default, it sets a keyframe for the point in time whenever you created the pin. And so you can move forward here. I'm going to move forward all the way to the end of this 4-second comp. And let's just kind of move these leaves to the side here. So now, as we see the scene progressing, the leaves kind of move over to the side. Just kind of lean, which is cool. But I kind of want to make it seem like the wind is kind of blowing through the scene. So the leaves, they wouldn't just kind of like fall back in one kind of movement. They might kind of dance back and forth a little bit. So maybe towards the end here, so after they like lean to the right all the way, maybe they come back a little bit back to center here, maybe like a bit like this. So they lean, then kind of come back to center. So the wind carries it, and then kind of comes back. Cool. I think that looks pretty cool. Now let's do the same thing for, let's say, this leaf here. So maybe it's the same thing. So the wind is kind of pushing it. And it's kind of nice to offset the leaves. It kind of looks a little more natural whenever they're not like moving at the exact same rate or at the exact same time. So we'll just kind of move this leaf around. And now you can see that leaf just kind of moves as well. So we do that with all the other leaves. If this one down here just moves just a little bit. Move him up a little, and then move him down a little. Just like that. And we can adjust these ones, like for example, this leaf, I think should just move just a little bit. And maybe he never really comes back down. Maybe he just continues to float that way. And then this one here, we can adjust. But he kind of comes all the way down. Now we have all of these leaves moving here. And all of these keyframes are linear keyframes, so it's like hard movements. So what we can do is hit U to see all of the keyframes that we've set so far. And let's go ahead and we'll just select all of them real quick. Let's select all of them. We can just make a box around all of them. And we can right click, go to Keyframe Assistant and Easy Ease. So that's just a very quick way of creating ease keyframes to where it just kind of smooths out the movement in like a realistic way. And if we watch this back, you can see just the plant kind of moves. Great. And for example, like let's say with this keyframe layer here, this top one here, if we wanted to go into the graph editor, we can go in here now and smooth out the mountaintops and it'll make the movements a little more organic. You know, it kind of comes over and then comes back down. You see the tops of this leaf here? It's much more real now. Very, very cool. So that's in a nutshell how to use the puppet tool. You can use it to move cloth, plants, really just anything that has a little bit of an organic quality to it. The puppet tool really thrives with. You can have it move arms and all sorts of things. I want to show you how we can also integrate with our displacement map here. So I'm going to just drop in our displacement map right here above our background, just like that. And let's go and type in displacement map, and I'm going to drop it upon the plant background. So again, we have black and white displacement map over the actual image of the plant. And again, we're going to make sure that we have the plant depth selected, and then we will change the mode to luminance here. So I think I'm going to not do any horizontal displacement. We'll only do vertical displacement for this scene. So I'll select keyframe, move forward to the end here, and we'll just like tilt up just a little bit. You can see that we have this pretty cool shot. This plant just dancing, just a quick little move up. Okay, so that's how to use the puppet tool inside of After Effects.